Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to show how to create a VPN server in Azure. But first of all, let me go to a short presentation of myself. So who am I? My name is Sergei Pavliukovichk. I'm a software developer in Luxoft now, an architect. Also, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I used to be a premier field engineer at Microsoft at the Moscow office, and yeah, that was a quite great experience for me. In the whole, it's like 15 years in the industry. I also have some certificates like MCSA, MCSE, whatever. So hopefully, my experience would help to provide some new information for you. Okay, what is the actual problem of this presentation? So just imagine we would like to access a resource which is not available from our current location. Or, for example, we know that from another country, you can buy something cheaper because of your location. So from some other countries, for example, some goods might be cheaper than from your location. That is also possible. And or for example, so from my personal experience, some applications in the Android Play from Google Play or from App Store is not available in a particular country. So we would like to set up some VPN connection to mimic our location to something else. So to pretend to be in another place than we are now. Also, we would like to have a cheap and sometimes we don't want an external VPN service subscription for that, because you know that you have to pay for it beforehand, for a month or for the whole year. So you cannot just turn it off and turn it on whenever you want. And also, we would like to have something with a minimal effort, just perfectly a couple of clicks, and you are good to go. So just you're immediately able to connect. And actually, when I started investigating this problem, I realized that it's not that easy to just create something in your cloud account, or if you can create some instance of a service, you still have to put some noticeable effort to set it up, and to set up the client connection, and set up the server itself. So I just decided to create my own solution for that, which literally allows to create your VPN instance in your Azure subscription literally in a couple of clicks. So I will try to show you how to do that. Okay, possible solution, right? So we have to spin up a virtual machine or a service instance, whatever it is, we don't know yet. So we have to set up a VPN endpoint in this virtual machine, and then set up a network tunneling to the internet. So once again, it's not just enough to create a VPN connection to your Azure network. You have to set up the tunneling to make the internet open for your VPN connection. or okay, so it preferably should be quick and cheap, right? So let's see how we can do this and what a possible option we have. That's quite a complicated one, but just in short words, if we set up the virtual machine, okay, so we can set up a virtual machine, or we can try to find a service which allows us to set up our VPN connection. So when we are talking about a virtual machine, so in the first option here, so this is a virtual machine plus Windows, for example. Just let's say we're familiar with Windows operating system. We are not going to deal with Linux because we don't know it. Just we set up a virtual machine with Windows, and we set up a VPN server application or Windows to make our to create our VPN service. Okay, what is the cons of that? First of all, it is Windows, and Windows costs more than Linux just because of the licenses and because of the resources it consumes. So a virtual machine with Windows in it would cost you more than a Linux machine, and to achieve the same performance, you would need to create a virtual machine with more resources, and it is also it would also cost more. Okay, if we're going to if you're going for a VPN service for Linux, and we still want to stick on Windows, probably we would have some. We would have to have something like Windows Windows system for Linux. So it is built-in functionality to run to run your Linux script inside a Windows operating system, and then you can set up your VPN server for Linux inside it. But it still have pricing regarding the Windows OS, and actually the Windows OS is redundant, so we don't need the Windows as we use Linux inside, so it doesn't make any sense. Also, we can use a Docker container inside. So yes, it would require less effort because we might have just a Docker image, and we can run this Docker image inside the Docker desktop on Windows, but we have still Windows, right? So it is much better to have a Linux environment and set up everything in there. But if you don't, if you're not aware of how Linux works, or you don't have enough experience on that, so you you might spend some time trying to set it up. But it would be cheaper than the Windows option, obviously. To reduce the complexity of the setting up, we can use the Docker image in the Linux environment, and it would be great. And actually, that is the option I'm going to show today. So we would get the virtual machine with Linux operating system inside, where we spin up this machine and automatically install the Docker inside, and then just use VPN server Docker image in this virtual machine to immediately spin it up. So it would be pretty cheap because it is Linux. We can use a less amount of the resources of a virtual machine to work performant, and it will be a Docker, which actually is pretty easy to operate with or to manage. So if you're not familiar with the Docker, you're probably it's worth of learning that. And also, what are other options? So if we're not going for a virtual machine, we can try to find a service. And as we use a Docker, so the first questions I get from some colleagues, for example, who was told about this option. So why not to use ACR, Azure Container Instance? So it seems to be like an obvious solution to spin up your Docker image with the VPN server inside, and it is already in the Azure subscription with the with an Azure virtual network connected. But the problem is that the VPN server application, whatever it is, requires the elevated privileges. So as it controls the network adapter, it needs to be run in a privilege mode, and Azure Container Instance unfortunately doesn't support this mode. So even if you can try to run your Docker image with your VPN server application, you would not get any result because it just doesn't support the privilege mode. So that is why we cannot do that. Also, we can use Docker images inside the Kubernetes, and we can use, for example, Azure Container services. Azure Kubernetes services, but it's like an overkill, because to spin up the whole Kubernetes cluster just to run one virtual machine with one application, it doesn't make any sense. But as far as I remember, Kubernetes supports pods running in the privilege mode, so that is doable. But still, it's like an overkill. But nevertheless, as long as the Azure Kubernetes services use the virtual machine under the hood, it still costs pretty much the same as a separate virtual machine without any Kubernetes cluster. But it's just like a different story. So you can spin it up using Kubernetes, but it doesn't make any sense. And the last option here is the Azure VPN Gateway plus force tunneling. This is an option of, I would say this is an enterprise level option, because Azure VPN Gateway is the platform as a service, pretty performant and pretty powerful service, but it costs much more actually, than just a virtual machine. And also, it still requires a bit of effort to set it up and set it up the tunneling, and even to set up the point-to-site connection from your laptop or from your desktop computer to the VPN service. So definitely, it's hard to make like a couple of clicks, and it would definitely cost you more than the option I'm going to show today. So if you're with me, just let me know if it makes sense for you what I'm saying. Okay, let's get into some technical details. So if you're aware of what an Azure subscription is, so what we're going to do. So inside an Azure subscription, inside the subscription, we're going to create a resource group. Resource group is just a container inside your Azure subscription, which holds all the resources grouped by some functionality. In our case, all of the resources for our our setup will be stored in one resource group. Inside the resource group, we will create a subnet. And within this subnet, we would create a virtual machine and create a separate network adapter for this virtual machine. Also, we're going to obviously attach a disk to this virtual machine. So when you create a virtual machine, it's not just enough to create a machine, right? So you have to create a machine, a disk, and a network adapter for that. You have to put it in a subnet. Also, we would create a network security group, which in our case would work as a firewall for our VPN server. So actually, we're going to just open some particular number of ports and block everything else. As the network protocol, the VPN protocol, we would use L2TP with a pre-shared key, which is like a pretty secure option with a pretty less effort to set up. Yeah, and also, we're going to create an external IP address to accept the connection to our VPN server. And the clients. The client machine, can be any machine because actually it will use the L2TP protocol. So you can use either your desktop machine, your Android phone, or iPhone or laptop, whatever you want. It is still possible to use OpenVPN client because it would support it as well, but the actual standard Windows VPN connection, for example, would perfectly work. And this part is like a server manager. It is a separate application, a separate application which allows you to connect to your VPN server instance and set it up. So as the actual VPN server application, I would use Soft Ether VPN because it is a free and pretty powerful application with a separate server manager, console, and command line you can use. Also, it is available in the Docker Hub. So this is the image we're going to use in this demo. So once again, the virtual machine with the Docker inside and Soft Ether VPN. But there is a challenge, actually, a bit of it, to have a virtual machine with the pre-installed Docker and the container running. And for this purpose, I will use the Azure Virtual Machine extension. So I will show you in a second. This is like about the Azure Resource Manager. That is the actual engine that we will use in Azure to create the resources. So Azure Resource Manager is the internal Azure service which is actually responsible for the creating and managing the Azure resources. So it supports automation using the templates. And the template is the essential thing here. So we're going to just create a template and use this template for the Azure Resource Manager to create all the resources we needed just using one button click. So, okay, how to create an ARM or Azure Resource Manager template. Let me show you this way. Portal Azure home. Okay, so this is my portal. So I create a resource. I choose compute and virtual machine. We have to choose any resource group we want. Let's create a new one, like VM test resource group. We create a virtual machine name test VM 1, something like that. We select a region. Let's say it was like just North Europe. Availability options and image. Actually, that's okay for us, Ubuntu server. Also, username, message public key source, and whatever. So it is not important for now. So we select a disk type for the operating system. Then networking. Also, we can specify here just in bound ports which should be open. And we specify the subnet and the public API, which is going to be created here. Boot diagnostic. Also just notice this flag is a pretty important one. So you can save your money just setting up the auto shutdown for your virtual machine in some specific time. Even this notification before shutdown. And what else? This is pretty important for our example. So this is an extension. Extension is something which is going to be executed after the virtual machine is deployed inside the virtual machine environment in the operating system. So that is pretty important. So this is the option for us. So we have to create a virtual machine, and inside the virtual machine, we're going to set up the Docker and download the Docker image and run the container inside this virtual machine. So that is our goal. So what we're going to use is select the extension and select custom script for Linux. And just create one. And you have two options. You can just select a file, a script file, or you can just specify the command just right away. And then you just press OK, and then tags and review and create. So once the validation passed, you can use the downloaded template for automation. And actually, this is something we're going to update for our, to reach our goals. So what is here? What is important here? So first of all, we have some parameters and variables. And inside the ARM, you have to understand the difference between the parameters and variables. So parameter is something you specify when you use this template, some values like a function parameters, in any programming languages. And the variables inside is something which is not visible from outside, right? So it's something like a calculated values inside the template during the template execution. Okay, so this is like an example. This was the baseline I used to start updating the template. I will show you in a second how it looks like now. Okay, so what you modify there: parameters, variables, also unique values. For example, let's say, okay, unique values, custom through parameters, and the output. Let me open the actual template. How it looks like here. So first of all, I would like to have something which can be parameterized, and in the same time, I would like to have all the default settings uh, working fine, even if I don't specify anything. So it should create all the unique passwords, all the names of the resources, and automatically set up everything, and just output the values for me uh, to just have immediately create a VPN connection to that. So that is my goal. So that is why I specify the admin username and password. This is um, uh, the actual administrator password for the virtual machine. So it's not intended to be used often, but it should be there because you have to have the control of your virtual machine. This is the pre-shared key. So I just specified the default value here. Default VPN username, which is VPN user, that's okay for me. So I'm not going to change it, but I still can using this parameter. VPN user password, and you see here, this is quite interesting. It's in the thing is the template. So first of all, it is not string; it is secure string, and the second, so I'm generating this password based on some unique values like resource group ID. Unique string is the special function inside the template, uh, generating a unique string which is suitable for a password. And also, I just concat some. I create some uppercase character in the start and some special characters in the end, just to 100% comply the password requirements for the virtual machines. Um, Actually, it's not for the virtual machine. You see here, this is for the virtual machine, but this is for the actual VPN service there, and another compliance. But anyway, I still want my password to be strong, right? And I just use the unique string also for some resource names here. That's the default values. Also, what I specify here is disk type. So it's just like a premium local redundant storage, which is fine for me because actually it provides something like 11 nines of the availability. So it's pretty much okay with this local redundancy. Virtual machine size. This is the size of virtual machine. We will talk about it in a second. So this is the actual resources which will be used by our virtual machine. Also the variables, that is pretty important. So I specify something dependent. For example, location. I get the location from the resource group to use this location to create all the other resources. I create a user network security group ID and VNet ID. It should be a variable because, for example, in network security group, I used the virtual machine ID to just specify that as a parameter, so that it should be a variable. But actually, this is what you get initially from a template which you are just downloaded from the Azure. And this is the most important one here. So this is the actual command which is going to be used to set up the Docker container and run our Docker image. So first of all, you see here, I just download the Docker and just run it and run the container with a privilege mode, open particular ports here, and specify specify these placeholders. Actually, these are not the actual passwords. So this is kind of a tricky thing how to deal with that in a template. So here is like a common template, and I'm going to replace these placeholders when when the actual virtual machine would spin up. Let me go here. So I created some, you see, network security group. I'm creating a network security group, and this is the virtual networks, and this is the public IP address, and this is the actual virtual machine. So you see here, it depends on the network interface. Okay, and yeah, and actually you see here, this is the actual extension for the virtual machine. So it is a separate resource here in the template. And here I just doing the replace. So I get the I get the value of the parameters, like a user password and VPN user password. It's just replacing the placeholder of the comment. So that is the idea. And actually, what is left here is the output. So it is the important thing that after we created the resource, we have to output all of the details required for the connection to a user, right? And this is how we specify the output. So we just output name and the type, just string, and we get something from parameters or from the calculated values. Like, for example, the VPN server address, we get from a public IP address. We get it from by its name and get the actual address. So actually, this is how the template works. Just be patient. Just a couple of minutes more to just before showing how this actually works. So also, what we have to take into account, the Azure virtual machine size. Yeah, I see you have some questions. So let me postpone the questions, and we will get to the questions after the presentation. So thank you for that. So Azure VM size. So what we take into considerations? Azure VM size. What is my? Where is it? Okay. Yeah, sizes for the virtual machines. Actually, we can use any general purpose virtual machine for that. So, for example, B series burstable. Burstable is it's pretty interesting thing. It means that when the workload for the machine is low, it just collects some points, and when it is high, it just uses these points. So it means that in some spikes workload, it just can increase the performance of the machine. So we can just use B series burstable, and you see here, it's like by default, I just set it up as a V1S, but you can just look into this by yourself. Also, it is like a pricing calculator, and for example, for this option, we can see that it would cost us like $10 per day, including the disk storage for the virtual machine. Okay, so how to use it using the portal? Sorry. Okay. So template persistence. It's one more thing I just missed. So in order to use the template, you have to store it. So we have to have the URL to this template, and you can use either GitHub or Azure Storage or your own custom site, whatever it is. So you have to just have the URI to this template, or you can just use the Azure portal, just edit it just in place in the portal, and you can use copy and paste to that. But just storing it somewhere in the GitHub is just more convenient. And as I see here, I can show you what is the Azure. Yeah, for example, here this is my storage, and this is the actual template. And you can push here. There's a roar, and actually, this is the URL which I will be using in this example. So it is like a direct URI to my template. And okay, finally, how it works. Mm, let me click the actual link. So you just use this link, and actually this is Azure portal create Microsoft template URI, and push the enter. And here it logins to your Azure account. So actually, I've just already logged in, so that is why it just doesn't request an additional login. And these are all of the parameters from my template. Yeah, sorry for the sound. So unfortunately, I cannot do anything with that. I can use I can use existing resource group, or I can create one. If I create new one, I can select a region for this resource group. And you remember in the template we used this region for all of the resources. So in order to have all the resources from one region. Yeah, you can change the size, you can change the password, whatever you want, but actually all of the default values works fine here. We can create a group like VPN test resource group, something like that, and select North Europe for that. And it should be fine. Yeah, validation passed, and I just put push create. Yeah, it might take some time, maybe up to 5 or 7 minutes. Depends on the, I don't know what. So depends on the Azure. But you see here, the virtual machine is already created. Maybe the most of the time will be taken by the actual script. Also, okay, I will keep it like that. Just get back to that in a second. What are the other option to spin it up? You can use Azure CLI or Azure Cloud Shell. So here you can just push Azure Cloud Shell here. You can use two options, so Bash or PowerShell, so whatever you prefer. So you create a group, and you create a deployment group. So deployment group is the deployment which is going to be located in a resource group. Then you specify the actual resource group, which you just created here, and specify the template you write. And that's it. It would be the same result as we see here. And see here, just start running the custom Linux script. Okay, what else can you do is specifying the parameters. So using the command line, you can use the parameters parameter to specify the actual values. And the output, we will see in a second. Hopefully, the virtual machine will be provisioned in a couple of minutes, and I'll show the output and the connection. So let's wait, or I can show you how it looks in already created one. You can go here, and I think test this one. Yeah, it might look like that. So you see here the public API, network interface, and network security group, our virtual machine and disk. And inside the group, there is our deployment, and this is actually deployment which we created initially. And the deployment will have the outputs, and this output will contain all the information required for the connection. So I go to network settings and use VPN and use a add VPN connection. Let's see if we test this one, right? Deployment. Yeah, it's still deploying. But okay, I can show you how to build actual connection. Deployment succeeded. Okay, we can use this output we just created. Source group, VPN test, and deployment, Microsoft template, and output. You can just copy this VPN server address, put it here. Connection name like my VPN connection. Server name here, VPN type. You have to specify the L2TP IPsec with preshared key, and preshared key here is the VPN, and the VPN username, username password, VPN user, and the password from here. I can save it, but I just thought that if I connect to it, probably I might lose my my connection to the StreamYard. So just believe me, it works. You will just immediately get to the North Europe with your VPN, and you will get all the internet traffic goes through your VPN connection. So you can connect and disconnect easily from that. And also, what you can do is you can download the. So what is my? Okay, here it is. You can download the server manager for the Ether VPN and connect to that, and it looks like that. So this is the server manager, and this is Microsoft template here, the server manager. You can create a new settings like a test connection, and host name should be from here. Everything else is default. You have to specify the password from here. So this is the VPN user password, and press it here, OK, and and connect. Yeah, it works. So so you see here the view status. So this is our VPN server instance, which actually which is actually up and running now, and you can specify and set up and manage it using this server manager. So that's the magic of that. Okay, let me switch to the StreamYard. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show, but maybe a couple of more slides here is what else you can do with that. Just play with that. That is interesting like exercise. You can use the parameter file, for example, instead of inlining the values in the command call. If you use the command line and you want to, control it using the parameters, you can connect to the server using SSH to control the actual virtual machine. Maybe you would like to run something else in this virtual machine to just not to waste the resources. You can set automatic shutdown to save money. You can start and stop the service from the airport portal mobile app. That's great because the Azure has a separate mobile application, and you cannot do everything from there, but you can control. You can definitely stop and run the virtual machine from there. Also, my advice here, you have to monitor and should monitor the server activity and set a strong password. As from my experience, if you don't set a strong password to your VPN server, it is just immediately hacked by some botnets, and your server IP address immediately appears in some free VPN server lists, and thousands of botnets, starting to connect to the internet through your VPN server. So it is definitely not what you would want, right? Then the last one, so you can create your own VPN public service. Why not? It might require a little more effort, but yeah, that's it. That is what I wanted to show you. And let's get back to the questions. Okay, I would like to provide a final confirmation, additional launch of VM via the some credit and getting its fresh address. User has no access to Azure PowerShell. I'm not sure what do you mean by final confirmation? Confirmation of what? Of confirmation that the virtual machine is created and gets the address after it is created. Okay. So probably the question is if there is a way to automate the getting the output from from Azure for the with the connection progress. I think if you don't have the access to Azure, probably you might have to have like a proxy script, a proxy service for that. For example, no PowerShell also, Azure or PowerShell. Because what I would suggest, for example, you can set it up a PowerShell script, which would run under particular credentials, and you can store this credential in a separate file, encrypted, which is not be accessible by a user, and user can use this particular script, which will get the required information from Azure. Or you can even set up PowerShell remoting endpoint somewhere in your network and limit the functionality of the endpoint by just running some particular commands. That is also possible. Or you can just get this information and provide it to a user. So if user doesn't have any access to anything, so maybe you can just make it for you. Okay, question 2. When I deploy WireGuard in a Docker container, my true public IP address leaks. I don't really understand why. IP address leaks. You mean in Azure? If I install PostgreSQL that is in a Docker container, install MySQL in another container, and I set up WireGuard, can I connect to this database? Yeah, the actual. I think that the question is not really related to the topic, but I can try to understand what you're talking about. If I install a PostgreSQL database in a Docker container and install MySQL in another container, okay, and I set up WireGuard. If I understand correctly, this is all about the networking. So Docker container depends on what actually what actual host you use, and Docker container actually uses the same resources as your host machine. So if you spin up and run a Docker container, it will have the same network access. If you run it in the Kubernetes, you definitely some other network setup inside. But once again, if you want your co-workers to connect to a database or whatever service which is located in Azure, you have to provide either public API in Azure, or you have to create your own VPN. But once again, this I just showed you the like a public VPN service. This is the VPN service which allows you to connect to the internet using your private VPN service, right? But you can you can set up a VPN to your Azure network, and actually this is a scenario of a hybrid cloud when you have some resources in Azure, some resources on-prem, and you want to connect it. So you want to use probably either point-to-site connection or site-to-site connection to connect Azure network and the on-premises network. And as long as the networks are connected via a VPN, so you can just treat them as located in the same network, and definitely you can use any network resources. So whatever database you have there. So hopefully I answered your question. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you for having me.